Hello. So, if you're here early before we started, because of course this is live on a Wednesday, you might just about read the word on the fridge back there, just about, maybe, possibly. But if you can't, it says devils. And if you can't understand why I would possibly make it say devils, you need to head over to the website and quickly do some reading. But hopefully everybody's all right. We're just going to very quickly pare down some of the bits and pieces that we've got on there. Wait for people to come in for a moment because we've done that bit. So hopefully everyone's okay. But yes, we'll just give everyone a moment just to get through the door. Make sure to share out the lines in basin. So what you do on a Saturday night, Jamie, is your own business. Oh, sorry. You mean on the ice. Sorry, mate. Right, there we go. Just make sure stuff is shared out. Like I say, we'll get people in, and then we'll get rocking and rolling. And of course, because of View from the Bridge went last night, and we're starting late anyhow, we don't have to worry too much about bits and pieces. Let's have a swig of water. Always be hydrated. So hopefully everybody's all right. Hopefully everyone's well. We'll get rocking and rolling in a moment or two. We're just going to give everybody else just a minute to just get in. Just checking to make sure we've not had any extra news. So of course, I've got things to catch up with because I was ill. So we'll get rocking and rolling on that. Just a few more people edging their way in, hopefully. Let's see what make sure everybody's in. We're just also going to get the just quickly skim through the Twitter and just make sure there's nothing going completely awry. All that. Right. Well then, we will need to just double check that one last thing to make sure, and there we go. Seems good enough time to get going, so let's get going with it. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary, it is Wednesday night, and yes, it is slightly later than 8 p.m. It is just after 8:30 p.m. in fact on this Wednesday, but that doesn't matter because we are still back here once again with the BOTW What's Current stream, bringing you the best and everything from across the National Ice Hockey League here in Great Britain. We focus on the National Division, Britain's second tier. That is our home port, our bread and butter. But we are here to have a look at absolutely every game from across the National Division, as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. My name is Anthony Russell. Hello, welcome back for the last Wednesday before Christmas at a slightly later time. But before we get rocking and rolling with all of the action and everything that's happened so far, we need to do just a little bit of housekeeping. And the first thing is, if you're watching live, hello, thank you for joining us on the Wednesday before Christmas. If you're watching live, please do just take a moment just to share the stream out, retweet it, repost it, whatever you want to do, whether it's Twitter or Mastodon or Facebook or whatever. We're not going to ban you for mentioning those things here. So enjoy, go and share things out, because this isn't just a monologue. This is a conversation, because you guys, of course, have the chat function over there. If you want to join in, you want questions, comments, anything you want to throw in about hockey. Of course, we'll go a bit freeform at the end. We usually do at the end of the show. But questions and comments about anything we're chatting about, always very, very welcome. All we ask is that if you do use the chat function, please remember the golden rule here at the What's Current stream, DBAD. Don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings. And then the other bit we do need to talk about, definitely, is the website, which is bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, where all of my hockey writing goes. And it's been a busy couple of days. I feel I've kind of spanned the crevasse of hockey, where I've literally gone from one extreme to the other. Hockey Stories is back, 2 Hockey Stories pieces in the space of a couple of weeks, and I have to say, crazy the fact that I managed to actually get it to happen. It took a while to get this one over the line just because of the way these organizations work, but a return two hockey stories for friend of the show, Steve Nightingale. Last time I spoke to Steve was last year in 2021. And he just secured a position with the Utica Comets of the AHL, the New Jersey Devils' primary developmental affiliate, I believe is the technical term there. And talk about a crazy year. You think it's been a crazy year in British hockey? You think it's been a busy year here at Banners on the Wall with everything that we've managed to chat about over the course of the last 12 months? Well, Steve has had a pretty crazy year because Steve is now a Brit in the NHL, and he is now the sports scientist and performance coach for the New Jersey Devils. So Steve and I put our heads together 1 year on. He was sat in a hotel room in Vancouver as we chatted about that transition from AHL to NHL, professionally what he's doing, personally what he's doing, and also the best place apparently to buy suits is Thailand. Who knew? But that is there, as well as the piece I put out today, because unfortunately I was not very well last weekend and I had to duck out on all hockey. I'm also going to miss a chunk over the Boxing Day game in Basingstoke just because of family commitments. But last weekend I was not a well boy, and unfortunately not very good weekend for the Basingstoke Bison, where it just felt like too much for too long. And so there is a new Running with the Herd piece that's come out tonight, went out about sort of 6:30ish this evening, called Sick and Tired of Being Sick and Tired. And it kind of was a bit of a mishmash of a piece where I hadn't had a chance to get the Raiders piece sorted, as you were aware from last week's What's Current stream, and I sort of mashed it together. It's a bit of an everything piece, but it's kind of gotten a lot off of my chest and off of my mind about how about some of the pitfalls about trying to write about the Bison this year, given what they've been like, it was frustrating to be able to miss the game. I am really, really thankful to a lot of people who kind of kept me in the loop as to what was going on. And then obviously there was the Romford game the next day, and just a myriad of stuff really. And I had had a weekend. Obviously the Bison are back-to-back 0-point weekends. Hull are starting to pick up, which is not a bad thing in and of itself. I'm very pleased for Matty D about those things, and of course Tommy Rowell, friend of the show and recent hockey stories person too. But certainly from a Basingstoke perspective, there's a feeling of tiredness, and I use that word a lot in the piece, and it's meant. So if you haven't had a chance, I'm not going to tell you about everything in here. It's some of the least fun writing I've had to do, but also very important because it's just allowed me to have that little bit of being able to sort of push some of those feelings out of my head onto the page. And so do go check that out. It's all there, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Either way, we've got a few bits and pieces that I kind of need to catch up with, given the fact that I've obviously, like I say, I was ill. I didn't do much over the weekend. The one thing I missed when I was shivering in bed with whatever horrible flu it was I had, definitely didn't have COVID. But there were, of course, a few suspensions. And we wondered what the result of that hit them, that James Galazzi landed on Luke Smittle of the Bristol Pitbulls was going to be. And it was another 10-game ban in the national division this year. There's a lot. There's so many being handed out. 6-game bans, 10-game bans. But James Galazzi given a tier 2 in the tower for his check that ahead of Luke Smittle. A 10-game ban, of course, which he's missed 2 from this past weekend. So he will not be back until well into the new year. There were a couple of other suspensions actually announced Friday night by the AHA. Regan O'Neill of the Invicta Mustangs, he's accumulated 15 penalty points. He gets a 3-game suspension. A couple of Chelmsford Warrior players, Clint Walton has reached 10 penalty points. He gets a 2-game ban. And Kean Lloyd has hit the 15 penalty point mark, and he has received a 3-game suspension for his efforts there. So another heavy 10-game ban in the national division. Definitely not something that we'd like to see. And also the other thing that we see too is that the referees and just the utter cracking down they're having on people going for shots anywhere near the head. And for me, this is not a bad thing. I don't think people should be deliberately hitting the head. I think they should, and I think there should be penalties for that, and they should be severe. But I do think they kind of need to look at incidents with more context rather than just saying 6 or 10, because we haven't had any. We've had very, very little mitigation, bar of course that penalty to Jason Silverthorne that was caused a match when he clipped Adam Goss turning around, which is pretty bad. A few bits in the chat already. If I have a chat with some folk at the Bees, it seems he won't be icing for the Bees in the future. Well, Galazzi was never meant to be there the entire year. Initially, Galazzi was brought back to the Bees to kind of cover for Adam Rossbottom, who was on active duty with the RAF. And then Rossbottom's deployment got extended, and now he's back. So I'd be interested to see what they kind of do with Galazzi. I venture they will kind of keep him on the books in case injuries happen. Bison discipline not helping them as well with a league high 444 penalty minutes. A chunk of that I think will be. I don't want to say self-inflicted in the sense that I think that there is a genuine feel that the Bison have been on the back end of some really, really poor calls at times. I wasn't at the game on Saturday, but there was an incident near the end where Gail Lobwele is given a 5-minute penalty for boarding, and everybody I've spoken to said the hit was clean as a whistle. And I think there's an element about that loss of their temper quite quickly, which I think is something the Bison need to kind of adjust. I mean, being the team with the highest penalty minutes in the league isn't in and of itself a bad thing if you use it to your advantage. And I direct you to the Sheffield Steel Dogs of days gone by for that. The 2012-2013 Sheffield Steel Dogs would almost be disappointed with 444 penalty minutes at Christmas. But certainly from a Basingstoke perspective, I think there's this element of they just need to kind of steady the ship and just all kind of pull in one direction and figure out the best way to do that. There's definitely, like I say, go read the piece, and apologies for coughing. But yeah, definitely, like I say, just go read the piece. Decent try by the Bison on Saturday. When Bison got one back, could have got a second. A couple of good chances from Zach Milton, for example. Sunday level in TP with Raiders a lot better in the third. Yeah, and I think there's kind of the issue there is that the Bison go into that third period in Romford 2-2. The majority of a major power play. You'll remind me, Andrew. I think it was about 4 minutes of a 5-minute power play left to play with. Within 10 minutes of the third period, they're 6-2 down. We just kind of hit that marker in a lot of people's minds that we just what something has to change now, and what that is necessarily, we're not so sure. I think it's really, really easy, and I'm interested as well. I've not read a lot of people kind of calling for Ashley Tate's head, or saying that player X needs to be released, player Y needs to be released. There's kind of something needs to change, but what it is, people are not necessarily putting their fingers on. But I think people are kind of thinking about the fact that basically has so many factors that kind of play into that why things may not be going well. That people are just appreciative of the guys who kind of put on the jersey. 3 slew-footing major penalties this weekend after 0 during the season so far. Slipping. Ice is slipping after all. I've not had an opportunity to look at them, but certainly interesting. 3 in over the weekend, 2 in one game, of course, as well. Tommy Huggett and Marcel Balach taking them on Sunday. Either way, we're about a quarter of an hour in, so we should probably have a quick squint at the results from the weekend. And what would have been really helpful on my part is if, again, I'd remembered to open my wretched notes. That would have been a really, really good plan, wouldn't it, everybody? But again, I've forgotten to do it since I've been setting everything up to send everything out. 4:44 of a power play start the third. Didn't get it all due to a Bison penalty for 4-4. But the point still stands, it's a penalty. It's a power play when they have the man advantage that they can keep scoring on. And it is one of these big things. And a massive thanks actually to Joe Scott, who after I put out my piece this evening was kind enough to kind of chuck out some numbers from the Bison. The fact they've had more power plays given to them than any other team in the league. But their scoring numbers were incredibly low. Let's just quickly pull up this tweet from Joe. So apologies for scooting over here and not looking at my screen. Number of power plays 140, which is highest in the league so far. They are first on that. Shots per game 31.81, which makes them 10th. And they have a shot percentage efficiency rate of 9.92, which makes them 7th in the league. And they are how many times on the PK out? How many times? Somebody then asked Joe, how many times have they been on the PK? 129, which is again. So they're first in the league in power plays received, and first in the league, about PKs given up as well, which is crackers in some ways. I don't get that, but Yeah, frustrating. Very, very frustrating on in that sense if you're a Bison fan. But either way, that was their game on Saturday. Basingstoke 1, Peterborough 2. A very interesting weekend for Peterborough. And of course, we'll get to their other bit in the end. But Basingstoke again get Slava Kulikov at home. Really, really frustrating. Really, really frustrating. Frustrating that one. But again, you don't have to like how Peterborough play, but you do have to respect them. They are high up the table for they're high at the table for very, very obvious reasons, and that is because they are a team that is just performing well and good. In games where you're not playing your best and you're struggling against a team lower down the table, good teams find a way. Peterborough are a good team, like I say, not an attractive team. It's not fun hockey. Wouldn't choose to watch it, but certainly like I say, good teams find a way. And this year, for whatever reason, you have to credit Slava Kulikov. That Peterborough side look very, very good. Saturday, then, of course, very few goals down in Basingstoke. Quite a few in Leeds. Quite a few. 8-6 the Knights win over the Bees. Quite a bizarre game all in all that one. I mean, you'd be very, very frustrated as a Bees fan to score 6 goals on the team top of the table and not get a result out of that one. Apologies, notes sort of coming through. Everything's still loading up. But yeah, so in terms of that game there. Even about halfway through the first period, there, Cole Shudra and Ryan Webb cancelling each other out there before goals from Kieran Brown and Cole Shudra had the Knights ahead of the first break. Bees did pull it back though to 3-3. Brendan Walker with 2 goals early in the second period tied the game up. Matt Hayward and Cole Shudra would then score to make it 5-3, but it was 5-5 heading towards the third. Getting into the latter stages of the second period. JJ Pitchley and Ryan Webb tying the game up, but goals from Brooks and Brown making it 7-5 in the at the 40-minute mark, which is crazy enough in and of itself. 12 goals in 2 periods. And Lack then made it a bit more of a tense, nervous affair, making it 7-6. But a goal from Cole Shudra with 9:15 to play in the third period made it 8-6, the final score. The Bees just not having an answer or a way back on that occasion. But you've got to give credit to the Bees there. Obviously, Don Gabai, Don Gabai still not able to fully, sort of properly coach, but obviously getting a reaction out of his players. Bees' performances have not been great, but they've been hustling and they've been competing, which is kind of what you need to do out of this roster, especially as someone has put in the chat. I think it's Jamie's put in the chat there. Bees travel with 11 plus 2 for that game, so 2 goalies and 11 skaters, which is not what you want to see. However, still pretty impressive that they could put on such a showing. That was one of the top teams in the league. We know how the top 2 did in the league. How did MK in third do? Well, MK weren't just the spoilers. They were the full-on heartbreakers at the link. A seesaw battle between the Wildcats and the Lightning. See Sam Talbot score the winning goal with 6 seconds to play in the game. A scoreless first period, 1-1 at the end of the second, thanks to Liam Stewart and Aaron Nell. Nell's goal just 60 seconds into the third period made it 2-1 to the Cats. Lewis Christie, who's been on a decent goal-scoring run as of late, tying the game up at 2-2. And then that line, Talbot, Chamberlain and Norris do the damage at the death as the game is winding its way towards overtime. Hockey is a game of 60 minutes, not 59, 54, unfortunately. And a heartbreaking loss for the Cats in a game where they again have competed well against one of the top-end sides in the division, despite having had somewhat patchy form across the year so far. Dogs are fighting like dogs and cats. Well, not so much, not tons and tons of fights, but a decent game all in all. But another loss for the Telford Tigers as they went down 5-2 against the Sheffield Steel Dogs. Cam Brownlee giving the Dogs the early lead before goals from Jason Silverthorne and Danny Rose put the Tigers in front at the end of the first. But from there, well, the Dogs bark and bite equally as powerfully. Jordan Boysa and Matt Bissonette putting the Dogs back in the lead before a goal in the third period. Boysa's second of the night, and an empty net goal from Tim Smith, making it 5-2 at the end of the game there. Which just leaves one more game from Saturday, and it was the Battle of the New Boys down in Planet Ice, Bristol, between the Pitbulls and the Hull Seahawks, and it's certainly a decent night for young talent from from Hull. Finley Ulrich with 2 goals here on the night, as well as a goal for Owen Brutton, who is, as I said, having seen this kid live, Matty Davis told me to keep an eye on him. I definitely will be. Goals, also goals for the Seahawks in this one from Emil Speck and Andre Themar. No, apologies. No, just Emil Speck. Themar scores the next night. That's my apologies. Goals for the Pitbulls from Jay Warren and Nick Gorchich is how I'm going for it at the moment. I've not been told any differently how to pronounce that man's name, which is so I will go with Gorchich until I'm told differently there. Heading then into Sunday from the National Division. I don't know how many of. I was going to say I have just been quickly squinting at the game sheets there as well. But certainly Sunday, as we know, Raiders 6, Bison 3, 2-2 going into the final period, and just again much similar in a way to what happened in Basingstoke when the two sides met recently as well. Even after 40 minutes and just that little bit of nous from the Raiders to manage the game beyond the Bison's reach in the final period has seen the Raiders come out with points again. Andrew, I will tell Andrew off because he almost got us all excited because we thought Ollie Hemmings-Mayer had scored when he tweeted about it, but it was actually Eddie Landsbergs. Although credit to Eddie Landsbergs actually from I know MK fans obviously he didn't score tons of points last year. He has exceeded last season's point total already. So Landsberg's showing that kind of when he's given an opportunity to kind of put the get out there and put the puck on it, he can put up points with some support to do so, as well as actually getting points in that game in Peterborough where the Bison played like 6 regular guys and a bunch of children. But it's becoming a theme that Landsberg is starting to get some points in that, and that is really good. What's also becoming a theme though is the Bison just can't seem to close games out, and that's really bad. But credit to the Raiders. Like the Raiders had a wobble last weekend, and have actually really showed up recently, and got eked out some good results when they've needed to. It's really going to help solidify their playoff position, having missed out last season. Elsewhere, then the having had their hearts broken. I'll get that the right way around. Having broken Swindon's heart the night before, MK on the road again. This time in Slough against the Bees. Liam Stewart putting the Lightning ahead. Brendan Walcombe then equalising for 1-0 at the end of the first. Lightning do end up in a 3-1 lead. Halvin Barnes-Garner and Rio Grinnell Park both find the net. But then Brendan Walcombe getting his second of the night. Sam Russell makes it 4-2 before Walcombe's hat-trick goal makes it 4-3 to end the second period. But then goals in the third period from Callum Field and an empty net goal from David Sarkanis makes it 6-3, a 4-point weekend for the Lightning as they look to keep tabs with the teams at the top. It was the Puppy Bowl in Ice Sheffield as Steel Dogs and Pitbulls met, and they've had some very good games so far. Alex Graham putting the Steel Dogs ahead, followed by an equaliser from Reece Kelly, who of course got his first EIHL point for the Cardiff Devils this weekend as well. Graham would then score his second of the night to make it 2-1, and a third goal for the Steelers coming from Vlad Volkanovs. Bristol would come back and tie the game. Tamas Elias and Callie Robertson making it 3-3, those goals coming either side of the second break. But Graham's hat-trick goal and an empty netter from Matt Bissonette see the final score coming out at 5-3. Two teams that had lost on the Saturday evening had met. We'd had the Puppy Bowl, and then it was the cat fight between the Tigers and the Wildcats up in Telford. And as someone has put in the chat, it's another loss for Telford, 9 in a row for the league champions. They go down 6-2 at home against Swindon. Colby Tower, Tomasz Malazinski, and Aaron Nell making it 3-0 by the end of the first period. Sam Godfrey, Chris Jones made it 5. Ross Cowley then made it 6. A little bit of a fight back in the third period. Finley Howes and Sam Watkins both finding the net, but 6-2. Wildcats have won 7 of 10. Telford have lost 9 on the bounce, which is pretty bad. And then there's Peterborough, who, like I said, talk about having had a wonky weekend. They eke out a win in Basingstoke to then become another victim of the Hull Seahawks. The Seahawks get back-to-back 4-point weekends, having only just got their first 4-point weekend the weekend before. They've now got 2 in a row for the side from East Riding with a 7-2 win over Peterborough. And talk about denting your title hopes. It really puts Leeds in a commanding position. Nathan Salem and Glenn Billing trading off goals in the first. then as we mentioned, Brighton got a goal on Saturday and got another one on Sunday, as well as Salem got his second to make it 3-1. 4-1 then when Lee Pollock managed to pounce on a rebound. And then in the third, Emil Svek scored twice. Andriy Themar made it 7-1 before Lucas Sadkowski took a little bit of shine off of the Seahawks win. Hemmingsway did get an assist. He did get an assist, which is very important. And we love Ollie for that. But we're like I say, because I've got the goal song sorted out for Ollie Hemmingsmayer, very much kind of wanting him to score goals outright. He hasn't scored at home yet, has Ollie Hemmingsmayer. So very interested to see what the reaction is in the building when he finally scores at home. Apologies, just loading up the table here for the National Division. Press the button. There we go. Now we do officially have the cup table all finished. All cup games have been played, as we already knew. The 4 teams in it, but now we know what will happen with the semi-finals. Leeds will play Sheffield. Peterborough will play MK in the semi-finals of the National Division Cup. And then in terms of the league table, like you said, well, Peterborough's wonky weekend has cost them. They remain level on points with the Leeds Knights. The Knights and Phantoms both on 44 points, but the Knights have 3 games in hand over Peterborough, which of course is going to make a massive difference for them. Milton Keynes then are in third. They have 43 points from 26, so they could theoretically overtake the Phantoms for second place. There is then a big drop down, 6-point gap between third and fourth, which leaves Sheffield sort of on their own in a bit of distance. They are 6 points off of third and 6 points ahead of fifth, which is the Wildcats with 31 from 27. The Raiders are up into sixth. They have 23 from 24. Telford have 23 from 29. They've played so many more games than the teams around them. Even to the point where they could be caught by both Bristol and Basingstoke. Bristol have the 8th spot at the moment, 19 from 27. Basingstoke 17 from 26. Hull are starting to come into view, though they have played more games. They have 14 from 28. The Bees are now bottom of the National Ice Hockey League's National Division. They have 12 from 27. Matty Davis's boys, for the first time this season, are off the bottom of the table. Both second legs on the same night, Friday the 22nd of January for the Cup. That's really good to hear. Really impressed to hear they've managed to work that out. That's really good stuff. I'm really impressed about that. Niall popping his head in there. Hello, Niall. Halsey Holmes from far at the moment. You can't argue it. 4 on the bounce, Niall. There's start. I said to that, and I've tweeted it a few times, and I keep repeating it, that on the bench before Hull's winning, Basingstoke, Matty Davis said to me, now we've got everyone, we'll be all right. He wasn't lying, was he? Definitely wasn't lying. So yeah, definitely going to be a lot of interesting bits and pieces in that one. Yeah. Either way, that's the National Division for the time being. Where should we go next? Should we go Div 1 or Div 2? What do people in the chat say? Do we want Division 1 or Division 2 next, as we're edging towards the half an hour mark here of this final show before Christmas? Likely will be top for Christmas with the win tomorrow versus Raiders, but would be hollow. Don't bet against the Raiders. I'm just saying, Jamie. Do not look past them at all. They are everything I really enjoy about watching a Sean Easton built side at the moment, which is just a little bit of everything. Zero finesse though, just straight for you, high intensity, high energy forecheck. That obviously will be harder at MK, but with the big ice. But don't get me wrong, Basingstoke ice isn't tiny, and they did it in Basingstoke too. If they can find a way to pressure, they could nick this and really, really poo and really, really piss on your chips. You would make the Lightning favourites, obviously, just because of the sheer firepower alone. But Romford have gotten themselves into a bit of a groove now, and they could easily do that tomorrow. You know what? We'll not spoil what we usually do, and we'll head to our friends in 1 North just to check in what happened last weekend. And of course, the great D-side return keeps rocking and rolling. They, of course, are back now after their enforced break, and they only had the one game this weekend, and in the last weekend of action for North one before the Christmas break. But another win for D-side, a 6-5 win for the Dragons in North Wales to keep their bit of momentum going against the Blackburn side that have rebounded relatively well recently. And Blackburn would rebound the very next night, a 9-4 win for Blackburn at home against the Nottingham Lions to help push them away, push Nottingham towards the bottom of the table again. A tighter game in Solihull at Hobbsmoat Road, the Barons with a 4-3 win over the Widnes Wild as those mid-table places start hotting up. And then towards the top end of the table, well, not quite as close as this one, but Whitley again showing their class with a 7-2 win against the Billingham Stars there. So Solway not in action in the league this weekend. We'll have a quick squint, though, at the North 1 table. And despite that win, which Whitley really needed to kind of keep pace, Solway remain top. Both them and the Warriors have both played 17 games. The Sharks have 31 points. The Warriors have 29. Billingham, despite their defeat, though, they are very, very securely in third heading into 2023. They've played 19 games. They have 24 points. Solihull's win over Widnes has helped propel them up into fourth. They have 19 from 15. So a fair few games in hand on the teams above them. Solihull, if they get a good run going and win some games, could get themselves well in towards the title picture. Widnes have 17 from 16. Blackburn have 14 from 18. Nottingham, following their defeat in Blackburn, have 8 from 17. Of course, been a fair few games. D-side have only played the 9 games, so they have 7 points. There's still plenty of time for them to leapfrog everybody else. And the Sheffield Scimitars, well, they will finish 2022 rock bottom of the pile with still just the 1 point from 16 games played. It's a very, very tough season at Ice Sheffield for the Scimitars so far. Got to go, but have a good Christmas and New Year. You too, Niall. Take care, my good man. Thank you very much for your support over the last year or so. Lightning get their 5 GB on the 20s back tomorrow night. 1,800 crowd expected tomorrow night. Yeah, fair play. Like I say, MK are definitely the favourites for it. But like I say, Raiders are fun. Raiders are a lot of fun. I really do enjoy watching them. So I'll say that. Into South One then, ahead of their last games before Christmas as well. A much more stacked Saturday night card in South One. Of course, the cup bits and pieces all put to one side for the moment as the semi-finalists have all been decided. But again, Milton Keynes, again, another solid performance from the MK Thunder. But again, they come out on the wrong side of the result. A 4-3 win in MK for the Invicta Dynamos, of course, are looking to keep their sort of upper half of the table status secure. Went less well for Oxford. They lose at home as well. They lose 6-0 at home to the Solent Devils. And then the division finished off with a couple of 3-1 wins. Slough win 3-1 at home against Chelmsford, which is a very, very solid win for Slough there. And then Romford, well, they lose 3-1 at home to the Streatham Redhawks. Although given some of the results Streatham have put on sides this year, a 3-1 loss is almost akin to a win in some ways. A few games then on Sunday as well. Chelmsford bounced back from their defeat in Berkshire. They head home and they beat the MK Thunder by 4-1. And another 4-point weekend for the Solent Devils as they squeeze out a 2-1 victory away in Kent against Invicta. Never an easy place to go. But then a maximum point weekend as well for the league champions. A 4-1 win for the Streatham Redhawks on the high road against the Slough Jets. So what that means in terms of the table, although the results have not been there, there's no doubt the Thunder have improved this season 100%, and you can just see it from the results themselves. Even if you just sort of skim them, obviously we don't have game sheets to go into the depth that we used to be able to when we had fixtures live. But you can see how much closer it is with the Thunder. They're not losing games by 7, 8, 9 goals. They're losing by 1 or 2. And that mark of improvement is massive for MK. And they deserve a lot of credit for it. Are they going to finish bottom of South 1? Probably yes. Are they going to go out in the first round of the playoffs? Probably yes. But that there is a marked improvement here from the Thunder, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. In terms of the South One table, like we say, most of the teams have started to edge towards playing a similar number of games. It's roughly similar around the top. Streatham are top, unsurprisingly, 28 points from 15 games, just the 1 league defeat so far this season. Solent have secured themselves second place heading towards the new year. They have 24 from 15. Slough are in third place. They have 16 points from 13 games played. So definitely in a position where they could at least sort of push onwards a little bit. Chelmsford are in fourth place. They have 14 from 15. Though Invicta have 2 games in hand below them. They have 10 points from 13 games. Invicta could draw level, and I believe would be ahead on the head-to-head. Romford are in 6th. They have 7 points from 10 games played. Oxford have 6 from 11 following their defeat of the weekend. And MK, with back-to-back defeats, they have 3 points from 12 games. But like we say, it has been a marked improvement from our friends at the Thunderdome. North 2 then, not tons and tons of games. There are a couple on Saturday that are definitely worth paying attention to. And after their bad defeat the week before in Coventry, the Hull Jets needed a win, and they got a win. They managed to squeak out a 3-2 victory over the Sutton Sting at the world's most versatile arena on Saturday. As did their big title challengers, the Telford Tigers. They had a much more convincing victory in Shropshire. Tigers too doing a lot better than their big brothers at the moment. An 8-3 win for the Tigers against Bradford. We'll see them at the top of the table heading towards 2023. And then in the local derby, as Sheffield, a 4-3 win for the Sheffield Titans against the Nottingham Lions, second team there. Just the one game from Sunday, which was a League and Cup doubleheader. Another defeat for Nottingham as they lose 5-1 at home to the Altrincham Aces. As we quickly pull up the North 2 table, of course we know from the Cup in North 2, Telford and Sutton have qualified from Group A. Hull and Altrincham have qualified from Group B. Those games are now all set for the semi-finals. In terms of the league itself, like we said, Telford will head into 2022 very much in the driving into 2023. In fact, sorry, very much in the driving seat in North 2. 30 points from 16 games played. Hull 24 from 14. That means Telford, even with games in hand played, Telford will have a 2-point advantage over Hull. Altrincham are in 3rd. They have 18 from 15, followed by Sutton, 14 from 15. Sheffield's win against Nottingham gets them into contention as well. They have 13 from 15. Coventry have 11 from 15. Bradford have only played 13 games. They have 8 points. So two wins would get them at least high as 6th. Nottingham, bottom of Division 2 at the moment, 7 points from 15 games played. Remember to stick any questions and comments in the chat, folks. If you've got any bits and pieces that come up that you want to chat about, obviously we're heading towards the end of all the divisions, and we've got a few bits and pieces we can chat about, obviously, once we're done. And then, of course, the final weekend of action for our friends in South 2. Not lots of games played in South 2, but a few, obviously, definitely with some stuff to chat about from last Saturday. And another bumper crowd for a bumper game at Ali Pally. An 8-4 win for the Haringey Huskies against the Chelmsford Warriors as they look to keep the title race very open still in South 2. A big win for the Invicta Mustangs against the luckless Solent Junior Devils. A 13-4 win for Invicta there. And then one of the big teams did slip up on Saturday. The Stretton Blackhawks have been on a really good run as of late, but they lose 4-3 in Peterborough against the Phantoms. One of the other teams that's been pushing towards the title, though, they got a big win on Sunday. The Bristol Pitbulls with an 8-1 win away in Oxford against the Rising Stars. Towards the other end of the table and fighting for playoff places. Well, it's a big win for Swindon. They needed it and they got it. A 7-4 win at home for the Wildcats against the Basingstoke Buffalo. So we quickly pull up the table for South 2. In terms of South 2, so that win for Haringey means that they are top at Christmas with no games until 2022. The Huskies lead the division heading into 2023. They have 27 points from 16 games, just 3 losses, one of which came in overtime. So they obviously got that point, which will help them massively. Second then is the defending champion Guildford Phoenix. They have 22 from 14. Bristol have 22 from 14 as well, following Guildford's recent double victory over them. And then, of course, a big setback for the Stratton Blackhawks here. They also have 22 from 14. It means, if you look fantastically at NHLstats.wordpress.com and Joe Scott, you can see what the maximum point totals would be for each of the sides. That overtime loss for Haringey proving massive here, because the maximum points Haringey could get is 43 compared to 42 for all of those others. But of course, they will have to play each other again at some stage. 5th place then is Invicta, who have 21 points from 14, still very much in it. Peterborough then have 18 from 13. Cardiff 14 from 15 in 7th. Oxford 12 from 16 in 8th. Although that decent result for Chelmsford, they could steal that last playoff place off of Oxford. They have 10 from 14, so of course could get themselves well into contention in the playoffs there. Swindon needed that win against Basingstoke, and it proved very important for them. They now have 8 points from 10 in 10th. Basingstoke are 11th. They have 4 from 13. Lee Valley and Solent, bottom of the table. Solent have played 12 games, Lee Valley 11. Still at the moment for Lee Valley, only 10 goals scored in 11 games played. But there we are. We've done it again. For the last time before Christmas, we have managed to go through all the fixtures across the NIHL structure division, National Division 1 and 2 North and South. We managed to touch on all of them. Just to point out the Cup semi-final, with the Cup semi-finals, the next night after the second leg's MK versus Leeds at the Thunderdome. Blimey, that could be really interesting, particularly if MK go through. Because how will they perform, having had that massive emotional outlay the night before, if they knock out Peterborough, of course, their local rivals, so they don't have to bring the emotional intensity the next night to take on Leeds. It'll be a really big marker for MK as a roster and a title challenger if they can pull that off. Or, if they lose to Peterborough, to be able to rebound and then go into that game against Leeds and get a result. Now I'm just going to quickly check whilst we're chatting in case anything else has happened. Just want to. It's also going to happen if I'm looking at the right thing. Nothing. No huge news that I can see. Obviously, there was a nice bit of news from the Bees, of course. Ryan Webb making a young Leeds Knights fans day, so fair play to Ryan for that one. Doesn't appear to be tons of other news leaping off the page. It's not huge amounts that I can see there news-wise. No, nothing else at the moment. Just get rid of that. Great to see Backy and Tom Wilson in full contact jersey for the Caps. Yeah, very, very much so. We'll have a look at the NIHL fixtures for sort of coming up over what we'll do. We'll at least look at the national division because, of course, there are fixtures over Christmas. We will be back next week, the Wednesday, the 28th, to have a look at bits and pieces. Obviously, there's not tons and tons of games. There's a fair few. There's obviously none outside of the national division over Christmas. So what we'll say effectively, we're 42 minutes in. Well, let's just have a bit of a free for all, questions, comments. That's we can turn it a little bit into kind of a bit of an ask me anything. What hockey bits are you looking forward to? What hockey bits are you looking forward to getting for Christmas? Let's just kind of have, like I said, let's just have a bit of a nice, easy chat just to kind of go through bits and pieces, and then we can all convene and see what bits we do get for Christmas next week. Because next week's show, because there's only national division games, we'll obviously, it won't be as long next week, but we'll have a kind of a chat about stuff. Maybe look at our favourite bits of 2022 as well. And maybe just have a bit of a rundown as to how, a bit of a year in review for Banners on the Wall as a website, and some of my writing and bits and pieces, what I've managed, what we've managed to kind of cover, what ground we've covered over 2022, and what we kind of think and what we see and what we feel of what's happened in the NIHL. I think is probably the way we're going to do next week. But yeah, certainly, a few bits obviously sort of flying around. Obviously, the NHL roster freeze is going to happen for too long. And of course, over Christmas, my favourite part of the ice hockey calendar, the Spengler Cup, returning for 2022. One of my favourite parts of the year. I absolutely adore the Spengler Cup. It's just such a random event that it's just one of those things that's always captured my imagination. If you're not familiar with it, the Spengler Cup is hosted every year. It's an invitation tournament hosted by Hartse Davos in Switzerland, and it was essentially set up back in the 20s as kind of a little bit of a friendship tournament post World War One to kind of reintroduce kind of German speaking stuff, folks to kind of interacting with the world. What we're going to do is we're just going to quickly sort of pull up what we've got. So in terms of the teams that we've got, playing this year, there are always generally there is usually 6 teams. Certainly in the common iteration, in the recent iterations of the Spengler Cup. And what we've got is you of course will have the hosts, Hartze Davos. They are it's always been in Davos the entirety of the tournament, and you will generally be joined by at least one other Swiss team, and then and it's all sort of done by invitation. So the other Swiss team this year, also in the National League, is Ambri Piotta. They are competing in their second Spengler Cup. They last played in 2019. There is then also Team Canada. This has been a recent fixture for the last little while of the Spengler Cup, and essentially Team Canada is a team made up of Canadians playing sort of in Switzerland, or at least kind of in Europe. They will generally be a lot of guys sort of lurking in and around or nearby. Now, Canada will be going for Cup number 17. They've not competed every single year, but they're always a lot of fun. Very, very interesting team to watch. I haven't seen a recent roster release at all from Team Canada, so I will assume that they're there. And then what you'll also get is you'll get some other teams from around Europe. So Sparta Prague will be competing this year. They're always they are a perennial competitor in this tournament. 2-time Spengler Cup winners, and of course for people who remember the name, Thomas Karpov, former Bison standout, previously briefly of Telford as well. He played in the Spengler Cup for Sparta Prague. The other 2 teams in it this year are IFK out of Helsinki in the Finnish Liga. It was going to say only one Finnish team have won the Spengler Cup before, because Kalpar have won it previously, and the other team comes from Sweden. They are Örebro from the Swedish Hockey League. It's the first time for Örebro competing at the Spengler Cup. But yeah, that takes place between Boxing Day and New Year's Eve. Tons and tons of hockey to be watched. Really fascinating. Teams will generally have their own roster and kind of augment it with other players. Lots of fun, really enjoyable. Should be tons of fun. I don't know where it's being shown this year. It might be on Viaplay or whatever that's replaced Premier Sports. Keep your eyes open. Definitely do not use any streaming sites. He says. Seemed like everybody reached the point or goal milestone this week in Leeds. The amount of points they scored, Josh, I'm not surprised by that in the slices. 100 goals as a night for Kieran Brown. That lad should not be playing at this level. Of the top 10 players for combined points, 5 of them are from Leeds: Cooper, Brown, Brooks, Hayward and Shudra. MK have 2 in Wallace and Norris. Swindon 2 in Malazinski and Nell, and Billing of Peterborough. Glenn Billing, Glenn Billing, I feel, gets slept on. And I think the problematic thing is that Leeds have been so dominant points-wise that when the time comes around to pick all-star teams again, and if I'm asked to participate like I was in 2022, I'm really interested at the actual headache I'm going to have, because it's really easy to score lots and lots of points, but who are the best players? Who are the all-star players in this equation? Because I think there's some real arguments to be had here. I think Sam Gospel's still the best keeper in the league, but do you have to give a nod towards Jordan Marr, given how impressive he's been this year, or Jordan Headley, who's also been very impressive? On the back end, I think the defense is arguably the hard bit of this to choose in some ways. But you look at that, just how solid team defense has kind of been. Sam Zajac has been really good. Archie Hazeldine has been very good. Lewis Christie has decided he wants to score goals now, so maybe we have to consider him as a forward. But the sheer weight of players up front is ridiculous. Cooper, Brown, Brooks, Hayward, Shudra, Wallace, Norris, Talbot, Chamberlain, Mitchell King. Do you look in terms of the quality of input? Do you look at people from like Andre Themar playing for Hull, Brendan Walcombe of the Bees? Sort of the impact that they have for their team. Sarkanis, of course, gets chucked in there as well with 29 points from 15 games. Alex Graham has got to be in the discussion as well. Themar, 19 points from Andre Themar in 8 games is just mental numbers. He was a class above the last time he was here. He's going to be a class above now. And he's just the thing with Themar as well is he's so frustrating because he'll just appear out of nowhere. You don't expect it. No one expects the Slovak Inquisition from him in that sort of sense, and that makes him really, really. Really frustrating. Net minding wise, I still think there needs to be an award for the goalie with the most points, which I believe is still Alex Metham at the moment. I believe Alex Metham still has the most points. I have Metham as having 4. I don't know if any, at least NHL Stats has Alex as having 4. I don't know if there are any other higher scoring keepers in the league so far in terms of points. Obviously, Rennie Marr has the only goal credited to his name, though he didn't shoot it into the net himself. But we will obviously see what happens. Demigod has the best stats for netminder so far. Another name to throw into, of course, Sheffield are clearly very, very consistent. They obviously don't win every game, but 4th place is pretty much just them sat on an island on their own at this point. They kind of can't go up and can't go down, really. And if you look at the fixtures that they've got over Christmas, just to have a quick squiz, they've only got 2 games back to back in a sort of Yorkshire triangle before a game at home on New Year's Eve. So there's a real chance for Sheffield if other teams slip up to really do something. Of course, out of Peterborough and MK, we know that they're playing each other on Boxing Day on the 27th. So we're not we're going to see what happens there, but. Like with Swindon is 5th. They're not up, not down. Swindon have been such a fascinating watch this year, only just because you really can't put a finger on them at all. And they're literally in the middle of the table, because of course they are, because they literally have lurched from being great to being terrible, which of course sees them in 5th, which is kind of where they should be in those circumstances. Obviously, as well, in terms, like I mentioned about Spengler Cup, of course, we've got the Winter Classic coming on the 2nd of January, my mum's birthday, which will be fun, between Pittsburgh and Boston. So 2 teams I don't like and don't really care about either way, but of course we'll tune in for the spectacle if nothing else. So that we'll obviously have a see what happens on that front there. Apologies, just double checking a couple of bits that have come through there. I appear to have certainly the latest BOTW appears to have gone down relatively well. Yeah, like I say, this is a bit. This piece that's come out today is not something I wanted to write, but kind of had to be written, unfortunately, and it is what it is on that front. But we've got, like I say, there's a lot of hockey coming up, obviously over the Christmas period in the national division. The elite league will of course have games. We've got the NHL. Like I said, for me, Spengler is just the pinnacle. Very rarely, very very rarely will occasionally make an appearance. I have a Cloten Flyers 2011 Spengler Cup jersey that I bought with my money as a younger man, and it is one of the most unique pieces in my jersey collection, and I love it to death. My Mickey Dupont, who I got a Mickey Dupont jersey because he's a former Ice Bear Berlin defenseman. So I have that. It is great, and I love it to death. But if you've never watched the Spengler Cup, try and make a go at having a watch of it. I don't think you'll be disappointed by what you get, because it's competitive hockey played in kind of the best spirit. Everybody still on Ovi goals watch? I joked to somebody the other day, everybody's so fussed about not letting Ovi score, so they're not the team he beats Howe against. That everybody else is scoring. Eric Gustafsson with 4 goals in 2 games, having not scored for a couple of years. Nick Dow scoring twice in 11 seconds the other night as well. Also, a fun element from the other night in the NHL was watching that linesman just manhandle Michael Bunting of the Toronto Maple Leafs. That was hilarious. Speaking of the NHL, of course, like I say, that piece that is up as well on the site of my interview with Steve Nightingale, now of the New Jersey Devils, really fascinating. I'm really pleased. I do have to say thank you as well to the Devils, who kind of sort of helped out with a few bits and pieces. Obviously, sort of greasing the wheels, and Steve helped an awful lot with this too. But the Devils could have quite easily shut the whole thing down and not let me do any of it. And actually, they were they were absolutely cool in terms of just letting us get on and do this, which was really cool. Spengler Cup days and World Juniors and Nights this time of year. Yeah, exactly. Should be lots of fun there, Josh. There's tons of hockey. I forgot about how did I not mention World Juniors? But yeah, certainly I do have to. It's crazy that sort of interaction I've had to been able to have with an NHL organisation to put out a piece. And yeah, British hockey is not the biggest in the world, but it was fun to have that engagement and being allowed to kind of do that. So I've kind of got an idea as to what to kind of do and not do next time. So that's lots of fun. It's really, really cool. Obviously, a lot of people have spoken to people previously in the NHL where being able to actively speak to someone working for an NHL organisation and get that interview was really, really cool. So I'm really, really proud of that. And I think it's one of my better pieces of the year. Like I said, we'll have a little bit of a look through bits and pieces. We'll miss next week's show on the 28th as live at Raiders Bees. Try to check in with the score update. Hope you and everyone watching have a great Christmas and New Year. Thank you very much, Andrew. It's always appreciated, my good man. You've been one of the biggest supporters of me and my work over the last little while. So it is greatly appreciated, my good man. Please don't ever think that that I take your bits and pieces for granted. So, just looking at next Wednesday, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. to 7:30 to 7:30. What we'll do, we will go live as close to 8 as possible. We'll probably try and get towards the period breaks of Sheffield and Telford's games. Sorry, Raiders, but we'll try and work that out. Either way, let's have a quick look at the fixtures over the Christmas period for the NHL National Division. Of course, there is a game tomorrow, 7:45 p.m. face-off in Milton Keynes on Thursday, the 22nd of December. The MK Lightning and the Raiders at the Thunderdome. And then, of course, we'll all go drink and be merry, and people will have to desperately not try and have a hangover, or at least a couple of teams will try not to, as there are games on Boxing Day. 5:30 p.m. face-off in Basingstoke for the Bison and the Wildcats, as is tradition that the Bison and Wildcats face off over on Boxing Day nearby. And then the Ashes are back on the line, 7:30 p.m. in Milton Keynes for the Lightning and the Peterborough Phantoms. No confirmed face-off times on NHL stats for these ones at the moment. There are games on Tuesday the 27th. No face-off time confirmed for the Bees and the Raiders, or Bristol and Telford. There is a confirmed 5:30 p.m. face-off, though, for Peterborough and MK as they renew rivalry after their Boxing Day game, and a 7:30 p.m. face-off at the Castle for Leeds and Sheffield. It'll be 6 p.m. in Swindon for the Wildcats and the Bison. Wednesday the 28th, then, like I say, so next Wednesday when we will be having a show. 7 p.m. face-off for the Raiders and the Bees, 7:30 for Sheffield versus Hull, and 7:30 for Telford versus Bristol. We will, like I say, we'll go as close to 8 o'clock as we possibly can with the show. Try and hold until the first period break of Sheffield's game with Hull and Telford versus Bristol. And of course, we'll get into the other games over the new year next week when we all meet up. Last call then, ladies and gentlemen, as we're heading towards 9:30. 4 p.m. B, 7 p.m. Bristol. Thank you very much for that, Jamie. Much appreciated. 4 p.m. face-off is a very sensible face-off time at this time of year, so well done to them for that. But yeah, last call, ladies and gentlemen. Last call for questions, comments, anything anybody else wants to throw in. Like I say, next week, we'll kind of do a bit of a year in review of the NIHL, of banners on the wall, of all kinds of bits and pieces, and we'll just kind of wrap up 2022. So I won't go into any sort of big speeches or anything like that this week, but I will, of course, I'll say it all at the end once we're all finished. Like I say, let's just very, very quickly check no one's chucked any other news out when we're just check that. Let's just double check. There's not been any other news out of anywhere. Of course, we congratulate GB under-20s on their silver medal from Worlds. Like I said, unfortunately, 2 dud periods and 2 dud periods cost them a gold medal, which is really, really frustrating. Gold, of course, for the GP Para Ice Hockey team, so congratulations to them for that. No, it doesn't appear to be any other huge news there. But you know what? We're heading towards the hour mark. We're pretty nicely on the hour, so I think otherwise we will call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for everything related to the Basingstoke Bison. Like I say, one of the toughest pieces I've had to write about the Bison for some time is up on the website right now, as well as bannersonthewall.wordpress.com being the home of hockey stories. And like I say, I'm super proud of the piece that Steve and I have managed to do. And like I say, it's my interaction with an NHL franchise for the first time. Please, please do have a read of it, and if you do read it and you enjoy it, please share it, because it would mean a lot to try and get those eyes on that piece. Of course, other bits and pieces on Banners on the Wall at WordPress.com is a lot of the writing is by some Focus player, Cummings match write-ups, of course. Hockey Stories is there. The old BOTW podcast back catalogue is there, as well as Dice Hockey, our tabletop ice hockey simulation game. Free to download for you to play at home. So if you don't enjoy your Christmas presents, download Dice Hockey and have a go at that instead. If you do download it and you do enjoy it, though, we do ask you to consider making a donation to Parkinson's UK. My dad is a sufferer of Parkinson's, early onset sufferer of Parkinson's as well. Let's try and get some better research towards a cure for that. But that is all there. Tons of stuff for you to enjoy. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Facebook.com/bannersonthewall is your place on Facebook. If you like getting your news for your Facebook feed, hit the like button. All the pieces that go on the website will go on there as well. But the best place to interact with me, as well as kind of get a little bit of my sort of running commentary on British hockey, world hockey, and everything like that, is on Twitter @BannersOTW, which of course spawns and is the best place to get the link for this, which is the BOTW What's Current stream, the NHL's first, and as far as we're only, therefore we're the #1 live show covering absolutely every game across all 5 divisions of the National Ice Hockey League structure. I've seen someone there in the chat say Merry Christmas, so thank you for that, Jamie. But yeah, so as a few of you may or may not know, I am a man of faith. Christmas has a meaning, and I very, very strongly believe in that meaning. So I will genuinely and sincerely say, I do wish you all a Merry Christmas. Thank you for your support this year. We'll talk about that more next week, of course. But whatever happens in the dark, and we've had the longest day. Today is the longest day, of course, which therefore means that it's going to get a bit lighter and a bit brighter. So if you can do be happy. But if you can't be happy, please do everything you can, especially around this time of year. Please, please, please be safe. As my friend Scotty Walls would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For Banners on the Wall at WordPress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long until next time. Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a good one. And then next week, let's round up this year. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you then.